Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Hope you're ready for a nice weekend. I am. I'm ready to be a bump on my couch because I'm just going to chill out with Grammy and my kids all weekend. It's been a busy but really good week, and I'm ready for a little downtime. So real quick, big thank you to Pamela and Chris for your donations. I really appreciate that. And music fact, on this day in music history, the Police started recording their debut album. In order to get the studio time, they actually borrowed 1,500 euros to get started. That album was released in November of that same year and included the hits Roxanne and Can't Stand Losing You. It's really cool to learn how some of the biggest bands in the world had really small beginnings. So there you go, just one of many. We're going to jump right in. Chad Daybell, there was a filing by defense attorney John Pryor, who filed a second stipulation for consumptive testing of forensic evidence. And it says, this is interesting, by the way. Number one, the hair samples recently discovered by the Idaho State Lab may be consumed by the state lab to determine if sufficient DNA is present to create a DNA profile. So here you go. It's January. This trial is set to start in April, and they have recently discovered hair that could potentially have value to the case. Just sometimes these things are investigated right up until they go to trial. So number two, in the event insufficient DNA is available to create more than one profile, the DNA sample will be split between the parties for testing, and each party may have the expert of their choice test their respective portions of the DNA. Number three, in the event sufficient DNA is available for only one profile to be created, the parties agree the state lab will halt any further testing and the parties will reconvene at that time to determine who should conduct any further testing. In the event there is not sufficient DNA to create a DNA profile, the parties will reconvene to determine what, if any, course of action to take regarding the samples. The state filed a response to the request for the joint settlement and strategy session between Lori and Chad, which would enable them to meet in person and talk on the phone with counsel present. I really just think she wants him to read some loin fire, either in person and on the phone. But the filing says the state has serious reservations about allowing the co-defendants to have face-to-face or other communications directly with each other. While the state recognizes the defendants may communicate through their attorneys, which the state is not a party or have input on, there is no inherent right or privileges for the defendants to have direct communication. The state recognizes the defendants have agreed to not use any evidence or information they may obtain through any discussions or meetings against each other. The state is not willing to make a similar agreement. Any communication between each defendant and his or her own attorneys are confidential. However, having the other defendant and or his or her counsel present would make them potential witnesses of statements made by the other defendant and eliminate any claim to attorney-client privilege. That could get hairy. In addition, the defendant is arguing there is privilege pursuant to Idaho Rules of Evidence 408, 410, and 507. This is simply not true or not the case. 408 deals with statements made during settlement or mediation negotiations, but without the state present, there can be no settlement or no true mediation. For Rule 410, since there is no plea being entered, by the way, no plea being entered, we all kind of wondered, but that's what they're saying, and no attorney present for the prosecution proposed to be present for the discussion, this rule is not applicable. 507 is applicable to mediations, but the rule doesn't necessarily protect statements made by co-defendants, especially to each other. In addition, the defendant is requesting to have a settlement conference separate from any mediation. One further concern from the state is how a meeting would be facilitated, which would protect confidential privilege the defendant is claiming and also meet the safety concerns and guidelines especially given the nature of the charges pending against them. They asked the court to consider the concerns made by the state and deny that motion. So let's move on to Athena Browfield. So the second caretaker of Athena and her sister has been arrested in Arizona. Actually, this was yesterday, the same day that his wife Alyssa was arrested. So his name is Ivan Adams. I don't know if it's Ivan or Ivan. It's spelled Ivon. He's being held in the Maricopa County Jail on a fugitive justice complaint. So again, he was arrested yesterday, currently awaiting extradition to Oklahoma. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation said both girls were in their care at the time Athena was reported missing. They also towed Alyssa's SUV, and a search warrant has been executed at Athena's parents' house, which is standard procedure when children go missing and they're trying to find any clues of their whereabouts. So just a little bit of a scary situation with this sweet girl, because it's been cold at night and then there's been no sign of her. Although they say they have been gathering evidence around town, but they're still not calling that actual evidence. So we will see. All right. Richard Allen was in court today, and I'm just going to say here, I think that the jail he's at shops like from the MC Hammer collection of jail uniforms. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. Link will be in the description, but look like some MC Hammer pants to me. The judge in his case ruled she will bring a jury in from another county from his trial. She said it would be difficult, if not impossible, to find jurors in Carroll County who haven't been involved in the case in some capacity, but also couldn't see holding the case outside of the county due to the witnesses being localized there. The cost would be huge to move the entire trial. We are dealing with that right now with Vallow Daybell. Big deal moving that trial all the way up to Boise. Inconvenient for the witnesses, very expensive for everybody involved. The state and the defense will need to agree on the county to bring the jurors from and sequestering during the trial. The gag order, that's going to stay in place, but both sides can talk about procedural issues as well as the next hearing for bail, which is on February 17th. They will not be allowed to discuss any facts regarding the case. There are several thousand pages of discovery the state still needs to give to the defense. But at that bail hearing in February, they will discuss if the trial can still proceed. Right now, it's scheduled for March 23rd. I don't see it happening. And we know these things get delayed time and time again, especially a case of this magnitude, but we will see. So Bryan Kohberger's Pennsylvania attorney, Jason Labar, is still kind of speaking out about his client that he had for a couple of days. He talks about the strong circumstantial evidence against Kohberger, but viewing the evidence individually, he thinks could easily be attacked by the defense. He said the probable cause affidavit is not clear cut. He also goes on to say that the DNA on the knife sheath could be touch DNA or transfer DNA. And he says, which would mean it could remain on that sheath for an indefinite period of time if undisturbed. That's one way of attacking that type of evidence that doesn't put him at the scene of the crime the night out, just that he merely touched that sheath at some point in time. He also says there's no direct evidence linking him to the crime. So let me just say here, he doesn't know all of the evidence that the state has right now against Kohberger. They're not going to put it in that probable cause affidavit. They're not going to do it at the preliminary hearing at the end of June. They're not going to give up the goods. They just want to get this bound over for trial right now. There's a lot, I'm sure, they're holding back that's pretty incriminating. So he also talked about those cell phone pings, putting Kohberger in the vicinity of the house at the time of the slayings, saying if it was GPS location coordinates, you're talking down to a meter as to where Kohberger was at the time of these crimes. Whereas a cell phone tower ping is that you're within a radius of that tower up to 20 miles. So obviously, Kohberger lived within 10 miles of the University of Idaho where the crimes were committed. Certainly, he could ping at any moment in time near the actual crime. We know that as a busy parent, you don't have time to completely overhaul your life in the new year. One change that's easy to make that will make your life easier in 2023 is Little Spoon. Most of the baby and kid foods at the grocery store is heavily processed and often on the shelf longer than your little one has been in this world. Not cool, and not the quality nutrition our kids deserve. Little Spoon makes everything fresh, organic, and uses absolutely nothing artificial. It's just like homemade, all delivered to your door and ready in seconds. From baby food to big kid, Little Spoon has you covered for years. Little Spoon even hides vegetables and chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, and more. Their smoothies come in pouches that make on-the-go snack easy, healthy, and tasty. And yes, I tried one. They're great. Did I mention it comes right to your door? It's flexible, easy, and everything stores in the refrigerator or freezer. You can pick your menu for a variety of foods to introduce to your child. The price is right, the quality is unmatched, so make this year's chaos a little more manageable with time-saving, delicious, and healthy meals and snacks your kids will love. Go to littlespoon.com and enter my code WhatTheWorld at checkout to get 50% off your first Little Spoon order. That's littlespoon.com and enter WhatTheWorld for 50% off at checkout. Although he says the car could be circumstantial as well. They laid it out where you have his car coming and going from the university within that time frame that they had the phone ping. So, look, he's just saying he's not, I don't think he's actually saying the guy's innocent. I think he's just pointing out, as a defense attorney, what we can expect the defense for Kohberger to eventually attack on as far as evidence, because that's a defense attorney's job. He said, we're talking about the roommate seeing him inside the house. He said, I don't believe hearsay is admissible in Idaho under the rules, although I don't think eyewitness testimony is hearsay. Cross-examination of her is going to be key in the case to get possibly even more holes as far as the identification is concerned, which we're not going to need if they've got some DNA on the guy. And we don't know that DNA found on that knife sheath is the only DNA they have. We just don't know yet. It should be noted he only talked to Kohberger about 4 hours in total and hasn't seen all the evidence against him. He said Kohberger was very engaged in their discussions during those 4 hours, and he also acknowledges that this case is still very much in its infancy. We're not even close yet, so lots more to come. Local case for me that has not been solved, has not had any updates in months, Alexis Ware. It's been almost a year. It will be a year on January the 30th that Alexis went missing. I said missing, y'all. Sorry. Missing, and still nothing solid in her case, it seems. We haven't heard any updates. So just a tiny little refresher. She met the father of her children at a gas station to give him the children. All that was caught on camera. She was going to follow him back to her mom's, but sped around him and left and was never seen again. On social media, it has been rumor after rumor, misinformation everywhere, but nothing solid. Her mother, Alberta Gray Simpkins, spoke to WYFF News 4 here in Greenville and says she's been caring for Alexis's 2 children since her disappearance almost a year ago. She said she's tried to make birthdays and holidays special, but ultimately the kids miss their mom. She said the kids are making comments, not understanding the severity of the situation. And she says she tries to keep her daughter grounded as much as possible, and her son still cries for her. I show him pictures of her right now. He still remembers his mom. They're very young, by the way. She also said this could happen to anybody. We just need somebody to tell us what happened. She knows I love her. She knows that I miss her. I think about her daily. I pray for her daily. I just want her back. So anybody in Greenville or elsewhere, if you have any information on Alexis Ware, please call the Anderson County Sheriff's Office at 864-260-4405 or 1-877-97-BAMFI. So hopefully some news in her case. it's like she just vanished without a trace. So Anna Walsh, Boston 25 reporter Bob Ward uncovered evidence of trouble with Brian and Anna even before they were engaged. A public incident report found by Mr. Ward showed that Anna told DC police that Brian made a statement over the phone that he was going to kill her and her friends. Brian is not actually named in the report, but it's in fact Brian that was referred to. The reports said the threats could be felony threats, but ultimately Anna did not cooperate with police and Brian was never charged. They closed that case. And I think it's very telling, um, that even before you're engaged, that situation caused her enough concern to go to police and make a report. Although we've heard from court filings in the past that he was diagnosed as a sociopath, probably a host of other things going on there. And people like that are very good at, as you know, love bombing and convincing the person it's your fault. And so ultimately, she just didn't cooperate. But it tells you before they were even engaged, there was fear in a way in that relationship. Just over a year later, she announced on social media they were engaged and went on to marry 4 months later. This has also shed light on a now removed Instagram post, which I believe this was removed shortly before she wrote the judge in the felony Warhol fake paintings case in support of her husband. But this shows that she had visible injuries on her face. Now, she told a friend it was due to freshly buffed marble floors at work, but friends are now wondering, was that really the case? She captioned the photo mild concussion, bruised hip, and a cut, and put the hashtag vulnerability. So it's still no news on anything about recovering her body or anything of that nature today. I'm keeping an eye on it. If anything breaks over the weekend, I will hop on and do a short episode. So I'm not like checking out for the whole weekend if something happens. And I kind of wanted to end this episode because we cover a lot of heavy stuff. And look, yeah, I mean, I might knock on Richard Allen's MC Hammer pants, but it's all serious stuff. I get a pun in when I can. But this story I saw on Law and Crime News, and it cracked me. It cracked me up to an extent. Now, this could have ended a very different way, but this is. Well, I'm just going to tell you, it is the most unfortunate butt dial that I've ever heard of as far as police go. A teenager in Kentucky accidentally called 911 in a booty dial gone wrong. The teenager was playing a tactical shooting game, Rainbow Six Siege, online with friends, and they all communicate through headsets. If you're a gamer or you have kids who are gamers, you know how it goes. So in the game, as he got 2 kills, he said, "I killed 2 people," but unfortunately, right before uttering that phrase, he had accidentally dialed 911. The dispatcher thought he called and confessed to killing 2 people. He said after the 2 kills in the game, his character died, so he grabbed his phone to watch TikTok like he normally does and saw that 911 had been called. So he thinks that happened when the iPhone accidentally had the power and volume button pressed at the same time. That triggers an emergency call, and I'm going to tell you, your girl's done it before. I was trying to turn off my phone and had the button sequence wrong, and I called 911 and I was like, "I am so sorry. I'm not in any danger." And then they called right back to be sure that I wasn't actually in danger. But he said he was freaking out and asked his friends what should he do. But he got 3 calls from dispatch who were calling and trying to figure out what was going on. He said 2 minutes later, his dog started barking at the front door. And when he looked outside, he saw 4 patrol cars sitting outside of his house. And that 911 call had actually lasted for 4 minutes. He decided to walk outside with his hands up, and there was a gun pointed at him. Cops spoke with him, patted him down, and had him place his hands behind his back. By the way, the whole time the gun is still pointed at him. He was visibly shaking. And he said the officers were professional. And while checking inside the residence, another officer joked and asked, who was his favorite dispatcher in the game. And the officer said, oh, mine too. So the officer must have been a gamer who played that game. But, these things can go one of two ways. This one was a little more lighthearted. Thank goodness nobody was actually hurt. But it rang true to me because I have accidentally done the emergency call. I had to disable it on my iPhone because I did it more than once, but before I called 911. So anyways, kind of a short episode today, but that's all I got for you. If anything major happens over the weekend, I will pop on and keep you updated. But if not, I'll see you guys on Monday. We got another full week coming up. And actually, tonight, me and Grammy, I have to tell you guys real quick, we watched the first episode of the 3-part HBO Max series on Alec Murdaugh because I kind of want to get refreshed on the case before I go down in a couple of weeks, which, by the way, I've heard today this trial could last anywhere between 3 and 8 weeks. Phew, that's a long time. And she was glued. She kept saying, well, isn't he mean? So anyways, we're going to watch part 2 tonight. She was all into it. She did not doze off, which is a big deal right now. All right, guys, have a good weekend. We'll see you soon.